The American Civil War began when Confederate forces opened fire on Fort Sumter in Charleston, South Carolina. As one of the final federal outposts remaining in the seceded states, the fort became a strategic chessboard. President Abraham Lincoln was determined that if war were to break out, the South must be the one to strike first. Upon taking office, Lincoln learned the garrison was nearly out of provisions. He skillfully threw down a gauntlet. He informed South Carolina that he was sending unarmed supply ships carrying only bread for a hungry garrison. This presented the Confederates with a calculated dilemma. If they allowed the supplies through, they tacitly accepted federal authority on their soil, jeopardizing their hopes for foreign recognition. If they attacked, they would be the aggressors in a civil war. On April 12, 1861, the South chose the latter. Ironically, the deadliest conflict in American history began with an incident that claimed no lives during the bombardment. The only fatalities occurred later when a 100-gun salute to the flag resulted in an accidental explosion, killing 2 U.S. soldiers. Lincoln's goal was achieved. The South had fired the first shot. He responded by calling for 75,000 volunteers to suppress the rebellion. This move prompted Arkansas, Tennessee, North Carolina, and Virginia to secede and join the Confederacy. While both sides deluded themselves into believing the war would be a brief, bloodless affair, the following 4 years would claim the lives of roughly 750,000 Americans. Texas played a massive role in the Confederate effort, sending between 70,000 and 90,000 men to the front. These soldiers fought in every major theater and nearly every landmark battle, with the notable exceptions of First Manassas and Chancellorsville. Their motives were diverse. For some, the war offered an escape from the monotony of farming, a chance for adventure, and a desire to earn their own war stories to match those of their elders. While slavery was the central political cause of the war, it was not the personal motivation for every soldier. Slaveholding was not universal in the South. Only 25% of Southerners owned slaves. That number also applies to Texas families. However, most fought to defend a Southern way of life, of which slavery was the economic and social foundation. They viewed Lincoln not just as a threat to slaveholders, but as a threat to the South itself. Bound by blood and heritage to the older Southern states, Texans fought to defend their extended families and their vision of regional independence. Texan troops were spread across 3 primary combat zones. First was the Eastern Theater. This area centered around Virginia and Pennsylvania. This is where perhaps the most well-known battles occurred, particularly Antietam and Gettysburg. The most famous Texas unit that fought here was John Bell Hood's Texas Brigade. It served under General Robert E. Lee's Army of Northern Virginia. The second was the Western Theater, which spanned between the Appalachians and the Mississippi River. One of the major battles fought here was at Shiloh. Texans were major participants. The initial Confederate commander was General Albert Sidney Johnston. He was once the Republic of Texas's Secretary of War and one of 8 full generals in the Confederate Army. There he would be struck in the leg, bleed into his boot, and die. He would be the highest-ranking soldier to die in the entire conflict. Another notable Texan at Shiloh was Sam Houston, Jr., who narrowly survived a chest wound when a family Bible in his pocket deflected a bullet. The third combat zone was the Trans-Mississippi Theater. This included Texas, Louisiana, and Arkansas. While Texas saw relatively little combat on its own soil, it remained a vital breadbasket, supplying food and resources to Confederate armies east of it. The war briefly expanded into the far west. In 1861, Lieutenant Colonel John Baylor occupied El Paso and established the Confederate Territory of Arizona, making himself its military governor. Following this, General Henry Sibley launched an ambitious campaign to capture New Mexico and Arizona. In August 1861, he arrived in San Antonio and established the Army of New Mexico. By December, he was in El Paso and assumed command in New Mexico the following month. Sibley won a tactical victory at Glorieta Pass in March 1862, coincidentally against his brother-in-law, but his success was short-lived. Union forces captured his supply train, leaving his troops stranded without resources. By May, Sibley was forced to retreat to Texas, ending the Confederate dream of a Western empire.